The hashtag hit like a hammer at dawn, and the hospital lobby became a courtroom without mercy. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "That clip is a fragment, not the truth." Phones rose like torches, eager for smoke. A teenager sobbed off-screen and someone shouted, "Monster!" Kayla Voss said, "People deserve to know who you really are." Security hesitated, sensing the current turning violent. Lena Ortiz said, "Adrian, breathe, we can fix this." But her voice drowned under notifications pinging like hail. Doors shut somewhere, a quiet verdict. Ethan Cole said, "We have to suspend you while we review," and the crowd roared as if justice were a badge of speed. The video looped on a tablet, a 6-second snare that erased decades in a heartbeat. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "There was a seizure. I steadied his jaw. Not what they think, yet doubt spread like ink in water." News vans screeched to the curb. Maya Brooks said, "Tell me everything on record, or they will write it for you." He looked at the camera lens and saw a firing squad. Sirens wailed, or maybe that was his pulse counting down. The first headline landed like a verdict, and the second made it feel ordained. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "They won't print the seizure, only the still frame." A copy editor somewhere chose a single freeze, and the nation saw cruelty without context. The hospital statement arrived at noon, a careful distance wrapped in legal cotton. Ethan Cole said, "We support due process," and the quote was clipped to sound like exile. Commentators laughed between ad breaks and called it accountability. Lena Ortiz said, "The kid is stable, but his parents are furious." Outside, vans multiplied like spores after rain. A producer texted Maya a list of pre-proved questions that bent truth into spectacle. Maya Brooks said, "If you speak, it must be live, no edits." Adrian stared at the blinking cursor of a draft apology, and it blinked back like a trap. A donor withdrew, then two. He whispered to no one, "I did not harm that boy," and the room did not argue. The feed turned into a stadium, and every seat held a judge. Kayla Voss said, "We have to protect patients," while she added swipe-up links between righteous breaths. Clips of Adrian's awards were recute as irony, trophies glowing like evidence of arrogance. An old post surfaced, harmless then, damning now. Ethan Cole said, "We need your devices for an internal review," and the surrender felt like confession. Lena Ortiz said, "The residents are afraid to be seen with you." A meme crowned him villain of the week, complete with ticker tape flames. Maya Brooks said a long-form interview could humanize you, but they want blood, not nuance. He opened messages from former patients and found one brave thank you buried under oceans of rage. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "I will not feed them my pain for their ratings," and the algorithm booed. Sponsors vanished in a polite cascade, and each goodbye wore perfume. A charity gala yanked his name from the program like pulling a thread from silk. Ethan Cole said, "Until the review concludes, all appearances are off." The phone lit with offers to debate strangers on air. Maya Brooks said, "They do not want truth. They want a spectacle of remorse." Adrian walked through the ward and felt eyes lower like blinds. A mother he had once comforted turned away, shame blooming where gratitude lived. Lena Ortiz said, "Let me speak for you," but she knew her voice would be filed under bias. He remembered a night in the ER when a blackout hit and he stitched by flashlight. The memory felt stolen by a 6-second loop. "Ah," Dr. Adrian Hale said, "they took my work and replaced it with a rumor, and silence signed the receipt." Isolation arrived with etiquette, then locked the door. Colleagues replied with emojis that meant nothing. Ethan Cole said, "Take some personal time," and the phrase felt like exile with a bow. At home, drawers of thank you cards could not argue with the feed's roar. A single voicemail from a former patient trembled with gratitude and fear. Maya Brooks said, "If the boy's family consents, we can air the full context," but consent was a mirage on hot pavement. Lena Ortiz said, "I was there. I saw the seizure, Yet witnesses are whispers against a choir. Adrian stood by the window and watched the city decide he was finished. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "If truth is not invited, it must break in," and somewhere, a lock clicked louder than a headline. Before the storm, Adrian was the doctor who stitched nightmares into scars that healed. He laughed with children who feared needles and promised hope to parents who had none. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "We fight for minutes because they can mean lifetimes." His hands steadied trembling chests, and his voice was a metronome in chaos. Nurses once whispered that he was the calm in their worst nights. Lena Ortiz said, "I've never seen anyone hold fear and turn it into courage like him." Patients clutched his hands with relief that could not be captured in charts. Ethan Cole said, "He is the backbone of this ward," and it was not flattery but fact. His office wall carried photos of survivors, smiling faces, framed by gratitude. Adrian walked hallways lined with trust, unaware that soon every step would echo accusation. He believed his years of service were armor, but armor rusts when soaked in venom. The waiting room once rang with laughter, not judgment. Families brought baked goods as thank you offerings, their gratitude filling air like incense. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "Healing is never one man's work, it's a choir." His words echoed through decades of service, layered into memory. Lena Ortiz said, "Every week someone comes back to thank you, and you act surprised every time." He blushed at recognition, though his reputation stretched further than the city. A boy once cured of a heart defect returned with a drawing of a hero in scrubs. Adrian hung it on his office wall, not as pride but as proof of connection. Ethan Cole said, "We highlight him at every donor dinner because he inspires wallets as well as hearts." The world once saw him as savior, and even critics whispered respect. Yet all that admiration would soon dissolve with a single clip, as if it never existed. At home, Adrian was not a headline but a father and husband. Dinner tables were cluttered with mismatched plates and laughter. His daughter once said, "Dad, you smell like soap in hospitals, but you're still my hero." His wife kissed his cheek when exhaustion sagged his frame. Lena Ortiz said, "You carry too much, Adrian," and he replied, "It's lighter when you believe in purpose." Photographs lined the mantel. Vacations, graduations, ordinary moments that became extraordinary in memory. He taught his son chess, often losing on purpose, chuckling at the boy's triumph. Friends gathered for birthdays, their trust in him unspoken but unshakable. Ethan Cole said, "Even off duty, people seek his advice, and he never turns them away." His home life was evidence of a man anchored by love, yet those anchors would soon fray under the tide of shame. Even in private moments, he revealed the fractures of weight carried too long. Adrian sat with Lena in his office late at night, files stacked like barricades. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "What if I fail them one day? What if I'm not enough?" Lena Ortiz said, "You've saved more lives than you've lost. That is more than enough." His eyes betrayed sleepless nights, and the silent guilt of battles unwinnable. Coffee cups lined his desk, each stain a mark of endurance. Maya Brooks once told him, "The public needs to hear the human in you, not just the healer." He smiled faintly, never sure the public wanted humanity over perfection. His fears were spoken in whispers, shared only with those he trusted most. He never imagined those whispers would one day be twisted into weapons. Adrian often walked the halls of memory, and each step carried echoes of gratitude. He remembered the night he pulled a child back from cardiac arrest, his hands trembling afterward unseen. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "Courage is borrowed from those who need you." Survivors mailed letters written in shaky handwriting, thanking him for more birthdays. Lena Ortiz said, "Do you know how many people breathed today because of you?" He never answered, because counting would feel like arrogance. Ethan Cole once toasted him at a staff celebration, calling him the quiet miracle. Adrian's humility built bridges stronger than accolades. But memory is fragile when history is rewritten by strangers. He thought those saved lives would protect him, but they were silent in the storm. drowned out by louder voices of rage. The hospital corridors that once echoed with trust now whispered suspicion. Former colleagues avoided his gaze, their silence sharper than insults. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "You know me, you've seen me work," but eyes slid away. Ethan Cole said, "The board demands neutrality," and neutrality felt like a knife wrapped in cloth. Nurses who once shared late-shift laughter now mumbled excuses to leave the room. Lena Ortiz said, "They're scared of being seen near you," her voice low, ashamed. Adrian lingered by the staff lounge, where conversations hushed when he entered. He watched his name erased from a rotation board with one dry swipe. Familiar faces closed like doors, and every step down the corridor felt heavier. Trust dissolved, not with shouting, but with absence, the cruelest form of judgment. Calls once answered with warmth now ended in silence. Friends who toasted him at weddings no longer returned his messages. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "It's still me, nothing has changed," but voicemail swallowed his plea. Ethan Cole said, "You should stop reaching out. It looks desperate." Lena Ortiz said, "They're afraid guilt by association will sink them." Text chains froze, birthdays forgotten, dinners canceled without explanation. Adrian scrolled through contacts, every name now a locked door. At night he dialed again, hoping loyalty might still live in one voice. Instead, the line clicked dead like a gavel striking. He realized abandonment did not arrive with fury, but with a silence that buried deeper. The storm seeped into his home, tearing seams of family unity. His wife whispered, "Maybe we should stay apart until it clears," her voice trembling. His daughter hid her face behind headphones, eyes red. His son asked, "Dad, are they right?" And silence answered louder than words. Adrian felt the foundation cracking, his sanctuary becoming foreign ground. Lena Ortiz said, "They're drowning in your shadow too," guilt straining her tone. Ethan Cole said, "Families either rally or retreat. Theirs has chosen retreat." The dinner table once filled with laughter now sat barren, chairs unoccupied. Adrian placed his hand on the wood, searching for warmth that no longer lived there. Home became exile, walls echoing shame. The internet dug like archaeologists of shame, unearthing posts from years forgotten. A joke once harmless was twisted into malice. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "That was taken out of context, but context was already executed." Kayla Voss said, "Look at the pattern, the mask is falling." Headlines screamed, connecting dots never meant to touch. Lena Ortiz said, "It's ridiculous, they're stretching truth into fiction, but fiction spread faster." Old photos, blurred and distorted, resurfaced as proof of sins imagined. Ethan Cole said, "Perception is reality here," his tone final. Adrian watched his past rewritten by strangers hungry for fire. He realized every word he had ever spoken was now a weapon against him. New accusations multiplied, piling like bricks until he could no longer breathe. A former colleague hinted at impropriety on air, chasing clout. Ethan Cole said, "We cannot defend against every claim. It will sink us further." Maya Brooks said, "One source is all they need for a scandal." Adrian clenched fists as strangers shouted his name in fury, calling him predator, liar, fraud. Lena Ortiz said, "It's like they want to build a pyre and light it with your name." Hashtags birthed sub-hashtags, each crueler than the last. A single rumor became a headline, then a truth, then a judgment. Adrian whispered, "I saved lives, not destroyed them," but no one heard over the crowd's roar. The betrayal came from the place he least expected. Adrian found Kayla's posts not as commentary, but as orchestrated sabotage. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "You were my student, why would you do this?" Kayla Voss said, "Because you kept the spotlight, and I was done waiting in your shadow." Her words cut deeper than headlines ever could. Ethan Cole said, "We trusted her to guide the narrative, but she weaponized it." Lena Ortiz said, "You gave her everything, and she repaid you with poison." Adrian replayed every mentorship meeting, every moment of guidance, now rebranded as ammunition against him. The betrayal stung not just for the lies, but for the closeness of the hand that struck. It wasn't the mob outside that broke him, but the familiar face inside the circle. The enabler revealed themselves in silence first, then in actions impossible to ignore. Ethan Cole leaked an internal memo, ensuring the press would feast. Adrian whispered, "You sold me to protect the hospital." Ethan Cole said, "One life can't outweigh an institution." Lena Ortiz said, "You're sacrificing truth for reputation." The memo twisted Adrian's defense into an admission, a narrative neatly packaged for media consumption. He realized Ethan had been smiling through betrayal all along, waiting for the storm to consume only one man. Adrian's loyalty to the hospital was currency, and Ethan spent it to buy his own safety. Silence hurt more than knives, especially when it came from blood. Adrian called his brother, hoping for solidarity. And the voicemail beep was the answer. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "Please, just tell them you know me." No reply came, no statement of defense. His wife refused interviews, choosing survival over loyalty. Ethan Cole said, "It's better they distance themselves." The silent family member's absence confirmed the mob story, not the truth. Lena Ortiz said, "They love you, but fear is louder." Adrian realized betrayal by kin was not spoken, but broadcast through their absence. Silence roared louder than slander. Among the noise, one quiet figure noticed cracks in the story. Maya Brooks uncovered a timestamp mismatch, proof the viral clip was trimmed to mislead. Maya Brooks said, "This isn't negligence, it's manipulation." Adrian blinked, stunned at the possibility of reprieve. Lena Ortiz said, "We need to show this before it's too late." Ethan Cole said, "Careful. It'll look like desperation." The outsider held truth like a fragile ember in a storm. Maya whispered, "The truth doesn't expire, even if it arrives late." Adrian felt a tremor of hope for the first time since the fall began. The revelation arrived like thunder, shattering the storm's rhythm. Maya's discovery confirmed the clip was edited to condemn. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "They burned me with a lie." Kayla Voss said, "It doesn't matter, people already chose their villain." Lena Ortiz said, "Truth still matters, even if whispered." Ethan Cole said, "The damage is irreversible." Yet Adrian saw in Maya's evidence a crack of light piercing through. The mob might never apologize, but the twist forced doubt where certainty once reigned. His name would not be cleansed, but perhaps remembered differently. The truth was late, but it was alive. The press conference was meant to bury him, but Adrian refused silence. Reporters swarmed, cameras ready to carve truth into fragments. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "I steadied a boy in seizure, not harmed him, and you turned mercy into malice." The room bristled, pens scratching like knives. Maya Brooks said, "Show the uncut clip, prove them wrong." Kayla Voss sneered, "He's rewriting the past because the present burned him." Adrian's voice cracked but grew steady, every syllable forged in fury. Lena Ortiz said, "I was there, he saved that child," her words sharp as steel. Ethan Cole said, "The board will not endorse this display," his tone icy. The crowd erupted with shouts, but Adrian's words landed like stones against glass. For the first time the mob paused, their certainty splintering. The confrontation with Kayla erupted in the green room. Adrian stepped close, anger raw. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "You wanted fame, so you destroyed me." Kayla Voss said, "You built a legacy that left no space for anyone else." Her eyes gleamed with vindication, not regret. Lena Ortiz said, "You manipulated grief into power, Kayla. That is cruelty." Maya Brooks whispered, "Say the word, and I'll air the proof right now." Ethan Cole said, "Stop this circus, you're only feeding fire." Adrian's voice thundered, "You set the blaze and I lived in the flames." Kayla smirked, unshaken, knowing mobs love spectacle. The room grew tight, every breath heavy, as truths clawed the surface. Lena's loyalty became fire in the storm. On live broadcast she declared, I was there. He saved the boy, and I will not let you crucify him with lies." Her voice cracked but carried like thunder. Adrian looked at her, gratitude tangled with sorrow. Kayla Voss hissed, "You'll ruin yourself defending him." Ethan Cole muttered, "She's finished in this hospital." Maya Brooks said, "The truth matters more than careers." The crowd leaned in, sensing courage unspooled on camera. Adrian whispered, "You shouldn't risk this for me," but Lena's eyes burned with conviction. She said, "If no one stands beside you, the mob wins." Her defiance was the rarest rebellion, loyalty in the face of fire. Adrian broke under the weight, live and unfiltered. He slammed his fists on the podium. Dr. Adrian Hale shouted, "You want tears, you want collapse. Here it is, because you stole my life with a lie." His chest heaved, sweat tracing down his temple. Reporters gasped as flashes froze his anguish into eternal stills. Kayla Voss whispered, "Now he looks exactly like the villain they imagined." Lena Ortiz said, "No, he looks like a man who has been wronged." Maya Brooks whispered, "This meltdown will loop forever, but maybe it shows truth." Ethan Cole muttered, "This is career suicide." Adrian crumbled, yet his collapse was also his rebellion. The world held its breath as the moment stretched. Adrian stood trembling, chest rising like a storm barely held. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "If you believe lies more than lives saved, then you never wanted truth." Silence swallowed the room, heavy as stone. Cameras clicked, each flash capturing history. Lena Ortiz whispered, "They're finally listening, Adrian." Kayla Voss crossed her arms, her smirk fading slightly. Ethan Cole looked down, avoiding the weight of eyes. Maya Brooks said, "This is the moment. They see a man, not a monster." The climax burned every bridge, but left him standing in defiance. The mob's roar quieted into uncertain murmurs, the storm momentarily broken. The aftermath was quieter than the storm, but heavier. Headlines declared his collapse final, and networks looped his breakdown like a funeral hymn. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "They will never let me rise again," his words hollow. Ethan Cole said, "Your position is permanently revoked." Lena Ortiz whispered, "You gave them your truth, that should matter." Maya Brooks said, "The world rarely forgives, but it sometimes remembers." Adrian sat in his empty office, the plaques stripped, the walls bare, echoes louder than voices. The silence was not peace but exile wrapped in paper. He realized defeat does not scream, it suffocates slowly. The circle of loyalty shrank until only embers remained. A few former patients sent quiet messages of gratitude, unsigned and cautious. Lena Ortiz said, "You are not alone, even if they are shadows." Adrian read the words again and again, clinging to scraps of humanity. Maya Brooks said, "Your story still deserves air, but I cannot guarantee who listens." Ethan Cole said, "Stop chasing redemption, it's wasted breath." Adrian murmured, "Even one voice of truth can keep me alive." His world was small now, but it still contained fragments of belief, and that was something. Redemption shimmered like a mirage, not a promise. Adrian considered a podcast invitation, a chance to speak unfiltered. Lena Ortiz said, "This could restore part of your name." Maya Brooks said, "It won't erase the wound, but it may stitch edges." Adrian hesitated, imagining ridicule if his words reached the wrong ears. Ethan Cole warned, "They'll twist your every phrase, you'll feed the beast again." He replied, "And let me feed them truth, even if they spit it out." For the first time he imagined not erasure, but survival, scarred yet standing. Even as he sought new ground, the public remained divided. Comment threads split. Some demanded his erasure, others whispered doubt about the mob's verdict. Maya Brooks said, "Doubt is the beginning of change." Adrian read posts that called him both savior and monster. Lena Ortiz said, "Let them fight over your story, at least it's not silence." Ethan Cole said, "This controversy will define you forever." Adrian murmured, "Better controversy than oblivion." His name was scarred, but scars are proof of survival. In the end, Adrian did not seek victory, but survival. Dr. Adrian Hale said, "They took my work, but not my will." He closed the blinds against flashing cameras, choosing to step away. Lena Ortiz whispered, "Sometimes walking forward is redemption itself." Maya Brooks said, "History may rewrite you, but at least truth exists for those who seek it." Ethan Cole said, "This chapter is over whether you like it or not." Adrian packed a single box, not of awards, but of thank you notes. His legacy would not be broadcast, but whispered in lives he had touched. That was enough to keep breathing. Night folded around the apartment like a final curtain. Adrian stood at the window and watched the city blink without him. He said, "Silence can be louder than hate." The room answered with a low hum from the fridge. He touched a stack of thank you notes, as if they breathed. Lena's text read, "I'm here if you need me," and he did not reply. He wanted the ache to speak first. The storm outside had moved on, but the air still smelled of rain. He whispered, "If I vanish, let the work remain." The street lamp flickered, then held. Morning brought a dull light and sharper thoughts. Adrian brewed coffee and read the headlines that still refused him grace. He said, "They kept the lie because it's easier than repair." His wife left a note that said, "Protect the kids." He folded it and placed it with the letters. He did not curse her distance. He understood the math of survival. He stared at the blank wall where his certificates once hung. He said, "I will not ask to be loved by strangers." The coffee went cold before the courage did. Lena arrived without knocking and set her phone face down. She said, "I lost my shift for defending you, and I would do it again." He said, "I have nothing to pay you with except thanks." She smiled and called it enough. She placed a recorder on the table and left it off. She said, "You taught me that steady hands come from a steady heart." He looked away so she would not see the tremor. He said, "Walk before they take more from you." She said, "They cannot take what I already gave." The room found its pulse again. Maya went on air with the uncut footage and a map of the edits. She said, "The viral clip omitted the seizure and the stabilization technique." She played the timeline twice. She named the hands that trimmed frames to inflame. She said, "What we shared was not truth, but theater." Control room held its breath. Adrian watched from his couch and did not cheer. He said, "Let the evidence speak before I do." Somewhere, a few minds shifted 1 inch toward light. He stepped outside at dusk and breathed like a man pardoned by no one. A neighbor nodded and said nothing. Adrian said, "You do not have to forgive me to let the truth live." He left the thank you notes at the clinic door like flowers for a hidden grave. He touched the glass and felt the building's heartbeat. He said, "I was there when it mattered." The city lights rose like a slow applause that he refused to claim. He turned away and added the final line to his story. He said, "I will heal the part of me you could not break."